if you look at the resume, there are different segments to it. So there's academics, there are your work experience and internships or projects that you do, your positions of responsibilities in college, and the final one would be like extracurricular activities. And it's kind of important for everyone to think about each of these segments like individually and try to like build a profile towards that direction. So academics, it's very important that you have really, really good grades in college. You don't have to be like a department topper or anything, but it's always better to be like above average and have like a good score.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aditya Sriram, and today, welcome back to the Seekho 101 session with a thought leader. And today, we have here once again another thought leader with us. His name is Aditya Sriram, and he is an incoming associate consultant at Bain and Company, and is also a founder and consultant by profession and a student by heart. So I won't take the entire limelight since Aditya is with us here. So Aditya, why don't you give us your crisp introduction about yourself?
Sure. Happy to. First of all, thank you so much for bringing me here. I'm super excited for it. So a quick introduction about myself. As you all know, I'm Aditya Sriram. I'm currently a final year undergraduate student at NIT Trichy. I'm kind of like graduating this year. It's a tough time for everyone to graduate, but you know what, that's the way it is. So yeah, I'll be joining Bain as an associate consultant this July. A little bit about me. I was born and brought up in Chennai. I've been there for a lot of time, and then I was fortunate to go to NIT Trichy. I've done a lot of internships. I have like a couple of unique experiences, and I'm really into music. So that's I'm a musician also. So yeah, that's something that I do in my free time. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Aditya. So that was really crisp. I really like that crisp introduction. All right. So without taking much time, let's head down to the very first round. So the very first round, it's actually rapid fire. And the best part about rapid fire is, so we have picked and, made certain nice questions, crisp questions, which are probably around your hobbies and interests. So this would be interesting. So you ready for the rapid fire?
Sure. A little bit nervous, but yes.
Okay, it's your hobbies and interests. How can you be nervous? Okay, so the same thing. 2 seconds to max 5 seconds. Whatever pops up in your head, the very first thing, just shoot. All right. So here we go. So question number 1 is: given a chance to perform at any location as per your choice, where would it be?
Honestly, at this point, it would be my college because I'm really missing it. I was really looking forward to my last performance, so I would say NIT Trichy.
Okay, cool. That second question: that one place you travel to and wish you had a home there.
Switzerland,
Oh,
hands down.
beautiful. I agree. I completely agree to this one. So the next adventure place planned on your list.
Anywhere in the Himalayas, like I want to travel, trekking.
Ah, nice. Okay, cool. You're doing great. So here's the fourth one: the toughest interview you cracked.
Bain, my interview at Bain. I think it would be that. Definitely.
Okay, cool. And so the fifth question is the last one, and this is like the signature question which we ask every thought leader on the session. So this one is the one lesson you learned from life and tell every other person about.
I think the one lesson would be that do things for the right reasons and be very authentic to yourself about what that particular reason is. Don't do it for the sake of seeing others and following the crowd and having that herd mentality. Do it for whatever your interests are and what your passions are.
Perfect, brilliant. So Fab, we are done with the rapid fire. You did great.
Okay, yes.
Awesome. All right. So now we are like a little pepped up. We are in the mood. So let's head on to the question and answer round. So the question and answer, like Sadaki mentioned, these are primarily the question that we have received from the users that are already there on Seekho. And more importantly, you are actually going to, once you answer these questions, you would be really looked up to as to, with respect to your insights and your valuable knowledge that you have, basis on your expertise and your experience. All right. So the first question that I have for you is, Aditya, that how to choose. I know that you just mentioned you did a lot of internships. So how did you choose which one was the right one for you to start with?
Yeah, got it. That's a really interesting question, right? So that students, they have so many different career paths to get into, and it's kind of becomes very difficult. So the way that I chose my career path was by doing a lot of internships, and I did 5 internships during my undergraduate, and I made sure that all of these internships were in different domains. So my first one was in my core engineering. The second one was in data science and machine learning. My third one was in consulting. My fourth one was in operations, and my fifth and final one was in strategy and marketing. I know like not many people think of internships as a way to explore, but that was kind of how my attitude was. And I think after these 5 internships got over, I just took a step back and thought about which is that career path for me based on my skills, and what is the kind of job profile that I genuinely like. Where will I have a very, very steep learning curve, and which would give me a head start for the next 15, 20 years. And I think I was able to come up with this particular framework for myself, and consulting kind of emerged at the top, primarily because of the kind of exposure that you get, the people that you meet, the different kind of problem statements that you get to work on, and obviously the flashy lifestyle that's there. Not sure if that's true, but the traveling part and everything. So I think that's all the different factors that I took into consideration for deciding consulting was the career path for me.
Perfect. So let's say, like you rightly mentioned, there are multiple opportunities out there, and colleges specifically, wherein every other college right now, they have this race as to where to head to. These internships are
Yeah.
coming in. Let's prepare for them, and this and that. So let's say, do you have like any specific advice as to how the students can actually pick and choose the right set of consulting, right set of internship before they actually start aiming for that one blindly?
Yeah. So I think it starts off with an understanding of yourself. I know it kind of gets like very spiritual and stuff, but it's genuinely true. Trying to analyze yourself as a person. What are the skills that you have? What are the different domains or industries that you're interested in? Something that's very important. You need to have clarity on that. And try identifying all of these different domains initially. And once you do that, then try researching about each of these industries and the different kinds of companies that are there, that are offering internships for that matter, or just look at the different kinds of problem statements that they're working on in like one particular industry. So I think having an understanding of that gives you a lot of clarity on which companies you will have to like apply to. And I think post that, it's all about doing the grind, networking, building a profile, having those right kind of technical skills and communication skills in order to like crack the interview.
Perfect. All right. So since we just touched base on a point of profile, let me ask you this. So profile building is right now also, one of the hottest questions, wherein every other student, although, I know that they have said certain things, they have planned how to do this, how to do that, but when it all comes down to profile, that's at times when student actually struggles. So your tips are probably, certain things that can actually help students with respect to profile building.
Yeah. So I think with respect to profile building, before I start giving advice, it's very important for people to know that don't do anything for the sake of putting a couple of words in your resume. Like it's kind of like the wrong approach. It comes back to the first point that I mentioned, that doing things for the right reasons is like very, very important. Do things in order to learn, network, meet the right people, and build your perspectives and your thoughts. So keeping that in mind, I'll talk a little bit about profile building too, right? So if you look at the resume, there are different segments to it. So there's academics, there are your work experience and internships or projects that you do, your positions of responsibilities in college, and the final one will be like extracurricular activities. And it's kind of important for everyone to think about each of these segments like individually and try to like build a profile towards that direction. So academics, it's very important that you have really, really good grades in college. You don't have to be like a department topper or anything, but it's always better to be like above average and have like a good score. With respect to internships, it's very important that, or projects for that matter, you can work under your professors on like multiple projects. You can work with companies. There are so many ways how you can explore the internships part. Positions of responsibilities is like very specific to colleges, or it can also be some kind of non-profit organization that you're part of. You're like an active volunteer there. You're heading a team there. There are so many things that you can actually do, or you can lead like a club or society in college, in your respective college. And the final part is extracurricular activities. It's very dependent on what your interests are. Be it a musician, you're into sports, dance, theater, anything. And it's something that you have to accomplish over there, like win some kind of competition. And I think something that's worthy enough to put in your resume. So that's kind of how profile building goes. And the journey of profile building varies across different profiles that you're applying for.
Perfect. All right. So I really liked how you actually, placed down into different categories and how you went through one by one, like weaving a basket. Perfect. I really like the way that you answered that. Okay. So the next question, Aditya, I have for you is, so you actually mentioned this to me. So a student consultant, this is something that, we have not really had a lot of people having that sort of an experience or even share their knowledge about it. So first of all, what is the role of a student consultant? And then probably, how can one probably be the best sort of a student consultant? Your insights.
Got it, right? So student consultant, the term itself is kind of self-explanatory. There are two parts to it, student and a consultant. Student is just like any kind of college student that's there. And consultant is just a person that basically helps some kind of organization, help them solve any kind of problems that they have. And the problems kind of varies across different domains. Like you can help them with technological problems, can be business problems, operations, supply chain problems, and so on. So only I think that part of it kind of varies. And during my college, I had an opportunity to be a part of an organization, a global organization. And the way it works is that there are multiple branches in like different colleges. It's called as 180 degrees consulting, very similar to like the eCell TEDx model. And so what we do is that we are a group of around like 25 people in our college, where we get together and reach out to a lot of nonprofit organizations and startups and reach out to them asking if they have any kind of problem statements or projects that we could work on as students. And most of these projects kind of go on for like a duration of 1 to 2 months. And during this process, we get to know a lot about that particular industry, about that particular company. It's an amazing learning experience for us also. And I would highly encourage people to become student consultants in whatever expertise or domain that they are in. It's not necessary that you have to be a student consultant just to get into consulting. It can be absolutely anything, right? So answering your next question about how do you become the best student consultant, I'm honestly like not really sure, but I would say with respect to the best practices, it's all, the first one would be like, putting the effort. Like you have to like hustle a lot. So communication is absolutely crucial. You need to also have kind of those sales skills and try to negotiate with clients with respect to the project contracts and everything. I think the third thing I would say for student consultant would be like project management skills, because you'll be working in a team of approximately 5 to 6 to 7, I don't know, maybe even 10 sometimes. And it's important that people know how exactly to lead a team and how do you manage a project completely. So I would say that broadly, these are the 3 skills that are needed for a student consultant.
Perfect. Great. Short and concise. All right. So moving on to the next question. Now, this has been a little bit of a hot one. I know, everyone has their own set as to how to do about this question. So this one is like, how can someone make their way to NIT?
Okay, so I think the process is like fairly straightforward. Uh, you know, for all of the IITs, NITs, there is like an entrance exam, which is like the JE, the standardized set of exams that everyone has to write, and you need to basically get like a good enough rank, and there's like a cutoff for like every college based on which like you need to get in. So I think that's kind of like how the process is. So with respect to actually getting into the college, talking from my personal experience, I think I was enrolled in like a coaching center. So I was enrolled in like Fiji for like around like last 2 years of my school life. And I think during that process, I was attending all of these classes outside of school classes, and putting all of that effort, and going that extra mile to solve like very very difficult problems in like different subjects. So I think that's kind of how it went completely. Yeah. And I think that's one more important thing that I would like to say when it comes to preparing for all of these competitive exams. It's important for you to like prioritize between different subjects, try to understand where which subject you're strong at and which subject you're weak at, and kind of focus and have targeted practice with respect to each of these individual subjects. So I think that's kind of how a combination of both putting the effort and also like prioritizing and evaluating how your performance is, and kind of both is how I was able to get into NIT. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So moving on to the next question. Okay, so this is a little, this is like a little insightful sort of a question. So, what are the most important skills as per you to become a successful consultant?
Got it. Right. So, in order to become a consultant, so about consultants, right? So there are a particular set of skills that are needed to get into consulting, which is or the interview process, like a certain set of things. But an actual consultant, you need to know a lot more like skills, which you'll probably learn on the job, and it's not really needed when you're actually applying for all of these roles. So I'll probably talk about what are the skills that are needed to get into all of these consulting firms, right? So I would say there are four important things. The first one being your ability to structure solutions to like a lot of problems effectively. So a lot of people know that during the case interview process, you need to come up with frameworks and be as BC as possible. BC is basically mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. So your ability to have all of these frameworks to be as messy as possible is very, very important. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is that your communication skills are absolutely important. The way your ability to articulate points effectively and communicate it in an effective manner is like super, super important. So I would say that's the second point. Your third point is basically your business acumen that you have. Your understanding of the business world and all of the events that have occurred in the past is really, really important. Your ability to correlate all of that to the problem statement that's given to you during a case interview is again like very important. So I think that's the third thing. The fourth thing is your quant skills, doing math like quick and also doing it right is very, very important. So I think these would be like the four important skills that everyone has to work on individually when it comes to the case interview process. But apart from this, you need to be an amazing conversationalist during the interview. Your body language, everything kind of matters. You having a smile on your face, all these small, small things definitely does matter when it comes to the actual interview process. Your end goal is essentially that you need to make the interviewer want to work with you in the future. So that's something that you need to keep in mind and like work backwards from there.
Perfect. Awesome. That was amazing. I really liked how you actually, mentioned on those specific terms that, even the small nitty-gritties that people tend to miss out and simply focus on the big ones. I think you really have to take both of them along rather than simply focus on the big things and, just miss out on the. Okay. So now, since we have already, I really liked how you also touched base on those 4 pointers. So when I say about those 4 pointers, how or give us some tips as to how the people can actually start working on those 4 pointers that you just mentioned.
Got it. So let me talk about the overall case interview process, which kind of like talks about all of those 4 points that are needed. So I think you can work on all of these 4 points by practicing cases, like all of these mock case interviews that you do with your fellow batchmates, your juniors, or even with experienced folks, right? So it's very important that people practice cases if you're like preparing for like a consulting interview. So talking about my personal experience, so I prepared for the case interview process for a period of 2 months. So let's say if it's 8 weeks, the first 2 weeks I spent on trying to understand what the best practices are in the case interview. So I spoke to around 10-15 people who went through this process. I researched online about all the different resources that are available, and I think one resource that I would want to point out over here would be this free course in this website called as Crafting Cases, which has an amazing introductory course about the basics and the fundamentals of case solving. So I think that's one go-to resource I would definitely recommend in the first 2 weeks. And I think week 3 was when I started practicing cases from a lot of these case books with other people. So again, 2 books I would recommend over here would be Day 1.0 and Cases Interview Craft if you're like an absolute beginner, because the cases over there like very, very simple. It's an amazing place to start. So try practicing all of those cases with other people. And I think after week 4, week 5, once you kind of are in the flow and you've practiced a lot of cases, try exploring other different kinds of problem statements. This is where I started using a lot of IIM case books and a lot of B schools abroad. A couple of them that I would talk about is IIM Ahmedabad's and IIM Bangalore's casebook is something that I always recommend during this particular stage where you're trying to move into like more complex problem statements. And I think during this the case preparation process, it's important for you to get feedback on those 4 points that I mentioned. right? Try getting feedback and learn from your feedback and try to analyze how your performance has been, and that's kind of how you improve, all of your skills. So that's how it works. And the second thing is basically the impressing the interviewer part and being an amazing conversationalist. That is not something that you can do immediately in a period of 1 month. That kind of happens like over a year, you having conversations with other people, you networking and building that skills. That's kind of how it works. So that's something that you need to be very conscious about yourself in doing it.
Perfect. So that's like the hot question answered in the best, simplest manner. So great, yeah, Aditya. Okay, so the next question is a little bit on a role part. If you can, give your insight on the business analyst role as a consultant, as to what exactly, as a business analyst does, what does it happen, when you move into that consulting section. So if you can just shed a little light on it.
Got it. So I think it's a little bit important to talk about like how the hierarchy is or how projects are structured in most of these consulting firms. So let's say if there is like one particular problem statement that's there, which is like super huge and big, there are multiple different work streams that are there, right? So let's say a project lead would be responsible for all of these work streams, like multiple work streams, and there'll be like some consultant that's responsible for one or two work streams, and each work stream there'll be like associate consultants and a business analyst that will be involved. So that's kind of like how the flow is and how you are part of like the bigger picture. So if you look at there is no like day-to-day role of what a business analyst does, because every day is like kind of different. But at a very high level, there are two aspects to it. One part would be like proving all of the hypothesis that's there. That's been made in the projects. This involves a lot of data analysis and number crunching. So getting all of those data points from the clients and from all of the resources that are available online, and the data cleaning process, the pre-processing part, and also coming up with all of the insights for that. So I think that's one part of the work, and I think the other part of it would be also putting all of these insights in a structured way, making all of those PPTs, and communicating things with the client. So I think those would be like at a very high level the two important parts for a business analyst.
Perfect. So I didn't even realize we are actually, almost done with all the questions except one. So this is like the last one that I have for you. Okay. So the last one. So this is considering the best part is your journey in itself unique. Like you mentioned, you were like a student consultant, then you had like multiple internships altogether, and that also from different sectors, categories, all those things that you venture, and then moving on to being an upcoming consultant. So all that journey. So this question is, I would actually put it in such a manner as to how you would think about it as to where you came from. So considering this question is more on what is that one life lesson that you have learned throughout this journey, and what would you like to pass it on to others?
Great. I think that's a difficult question, I would say. But if I were to say what is that one lesson that I learned, it would be that do not try to like follow the crowd. Trying to have that herd mentality is definitely not going to work. Try optimizing for as many new experiences as possible, things that would genuinely add a lot of value to your life. Don't just think about your career. There are a lot of aspects to life apart from just your career, your personal relationships, networking, friendships, and everything. So yeah, so don't just like follow the crowd. The fact that I have a lot of unique experiences is because I had that kind of an attitude that I really wanted to do things differently, and it kind of worked for me. So yeah, that's the way it is.
Perfect. Great, Aditya. So that was the last question, actually, the 10th question. I didn't really even realize that, the time has actually flown by. So we'll actually conclude this. I'll stop bombarding you with questions. Guys, we are done with the questions, and this is all with respect to the current session of Seekho 101 session with the thought leader, Aditya Sriram. And we are going to conclude with this session. But yes, please stay tuned, because ultimately we are again going to come back with more such sessions for you guys, wherein we are bringing thought leaders similar to Aditya from all across the industries only for you, so that you can actually get the right answers which are out there in the actual world, rather than simply studying there from the books. So that's about it. Aditya, once again, I thank you so very much for taking time out and being with us on this
Yeah, my
one-on-one
pleasure.
session. And we are really looking forward to having you more visible on Seekho as well.
Yeah, definitely my pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for bringing me here.